Pat and Heidi from Rain Country, and we're here today to talk about a subject that seems to be on the minds of a lot of folks, and that is preparedness. Preparedness is takes a lot of different shapes and sizes, and we wanted to focus more on a practical sense of storing up food like you would have a retirement account, or you'd have a savings account, or an extra car in the driveway in case one breaks down. Today we want to talk about food stores and ways to prepare food and why we do it.
And this is going to be a part of a series that's going to be at least in 3 parts, maybe more. So how and why we prepare, and this is part 1, food storage. So what is a brief overview and history as to why we do it?
Wisdom. You just never know. We live in an area that can be isolated due to wind, earthquakes, tsunamis, landslides, any of those.
A rare blizzard.
A rare blizzard. Any of those things can trigger or inhibit the reduced flow of traffic coming up from the south or from the north to supply goods and services to our little neck of the woods. We can become an island at any moment in time.
And we have.
And we are scheduled to have this major earthquake at some point that would cause an awful lot of bridges to go out and
Yep.
Landslides, trees falling and such. So we have a lot of rain here. We're kind of in the season right now where it rains a lot, and so the ground gets saturated with water, and we have landslides, trees falling over, windstorms. Last night the wind was blowing quite fiercely. So there are several reasons why we put food up, and several different ways of cooking it.
As he was mentioning, for us, like the bridges going out, for example, we have several bridges on both sides of town. And if either any of those go out, especially if they go out on both sides, then we become an island. We had a blizzard one year that made us a complete island, and the store shelves were getting empty because the trucks couldn't get through. Another year there was some major flooding south of town and north of town. And south of town the road was completely washed out, so the trucks couldn't come through that way. And then north of town the road was down to 1 lane. Had it been any worse, we would have become an island again then. And that was maybe, 2-3 years ago tops. And we get frequent power outages, and every time the power goes out, people go run to the store and start stocking up on bread and milk. And this is just stuff we don't have to worry about anymore because we're ready to go.
Not just natural disasters, but also economic issues that might arise, whether it be something as personal as a job loss or an injury, anything like that. Back in 2007, 2008, there was an economic upheaval in the nation, and a lot of people lost their jobs and their houses, and we're out on the street. One minute they were doing great, had 3 new cars in the driveway and a huge house, and the next minute they're going bankrupt and living in tents. So there's several different reasons why this series that might help benefit other folks. Some people might define that as prepping. Some people might define it as homesteading. We consider ourselves both. Generally, people who get into the preparedness realm, they start thinking about long-term self-sufficiency, and that's where homesteading comes in. So, anyhow.
Yeah. And so just in a brief history of kind of how we got into it, as far as, he's mentioned before in other videos how he was raised more in the homesteading type lifestyle where I was not. But we've both been DIYers pretty much all our life, or do-it-yourselfers, and have a lot of skills that, to make and do things for ourselves. but it was about 2008 that we started really kind of looking at things and reconsidering and got into prepping, and which eventually led more into the homesteading. But the funny thing about us is our getting into prepping wasn't, as far as food goes, we didn't immediately jump into stocking up on freeze-dried, dehydrated, number 10 cans of food. But mostly what it was is we jumped into really trying to get serious about gardening, even here on our little 3rd acre, and seeing how much we can grow. So we started with a little plot, just a little square basically, and then from that we expanded and expanded until our whole backyard is pretty much a garden, and now a chicken coop and a greenhouse. And I've been slowly expanding the front yard and then the side yard as well into gardening areas. And so,
And firewood storage.
and firewood storage. So we actually kind of did it in the reverse order that most people, when they started getting into prepping, we started by growing our own food mostly while stocking up on some things, and then later got into the freeze-dried and dehydrated foods, which I'll get into a bit. So for us, first was, like I said, growing our own food. And then, though I had been canning things for years, it was only hot water bath and the occasional batch of peaches, homemade salsa, tomatoes, and then jams and syrups. But when we got serious about looking at the importance of having food stores on hand was when I finally jumped into pressure canning, got myself a nice all-American canner, which I highly recommend. I think if you don't have a pressure canner yet, that's the one you need to go with, in my personal opinion. Yes, it's more expensive, but it's built like a tank, and it's going to last for generations to come.
It needs to be built like a tank with Mama Rain.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Mr. Rain. And anyway, I started canning up. We got blessed that year that I first started pressure canning with a whole bunch of homegrown organic beets from somebody else. I mean, these were beautiful. And so it's like, well, I got to do it. I got a pressure can. So I canned those babies up, and I was so excited about that I ran down to the produce stand and bought a big old box of green beans and canned all those up and went from there. Oh, and meat. We started stocking up on some good grass-fed beef roast from our local store, and I started canning those up too. And then whatever else I could get my hands on, I just, I didn't can Mr. Rain, thankfully. He didn't go in the canner, but it was close, because everything that was close, I was thrown in. I'm going to can everything.
I kept my distance.
Just
She's
kidding,
excited
of
about
course.
that canner, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then,
We had that canner for quite
actually,
some time.
we had the
Yeah.
canner, I think. We bought the canner, and I think we had it for at least a good year because I was still afraid of pressure canning. But when we got the beets was when I realized I need...
pushed her into it.
Yeah, it pushed me into it. And then it was like, once you do it the first time, then you're addicted immediately, and then you want to pressure can everything you can. And then as far as dehydrating foods, this is something I've been doing for quite some time, and each year it seems like I'm having to dehydrate more and more. The thing I like about dehydrating my own foods is that they take up less space on the shelves than home canned goods or any canned goods, and they preserve their nutrients far better than things, especially like the pressure can, which is so much high heat that you're going to lose a lot of your nutrient value. You still get the food, and I still will do it, and I think it's still a great method for food preservation, especially with some things like chili, things that you want to have on hand when, let's say the power's out, or you just run out of time and you can't, you don't have time to cook a meal from scratch, or maybe you forgot to get something out of the freezer. You can grab a can of chili and heat it up. Home canned chili, you know what's in it. So yes, canning definitely has its place, but dehydrating is a really great option for the sake of space and nutrition. And then of course there's freezing. Freezing is another great method as far as preserving the nutrition in the foods. But then also you have to look at the possibility of power outages. So anything you want to add to that about what happens if the power goes out and we have 2 full freezers?
Oh, we have, what you need to really consider, if you have a lot of food on hand, well, how do you take care of that food? Well, if you're freezing it, the weak link to that is that you have to keep it powered up to keep it froze. So if you don't have any alternate means of keeping 2 freezers, then you might reconsider the whole freezer option.
Right.
So we have a generator that will power up both the freezers and the refrigerator. And you know, we have plenty of fuel stored up for that. And we also have solar capabilities of during the slow months when you get a lot of the wind and the rain, our solar usage collection, our solar collection is down in those times. So we have to depend on having that backup generator in order to power up our, you know, keep our food froze. So in the event that you have a freezer failure, then we would resort to canning and dehydrating and making jerky and things like
Right.
that. So food preparation, there's responsibilities added on to having the extra food laying around the house. How do you keep the bugs out of it? How do you keep it sealed? How do you keep it fresh? All those things you have to consider when you're stockpiling food. Food hoarders.
And when I first started, I just kind of started throwing stuff in buckets and plastic bags and not thinking about what was in the plastic bags. And I wasn't really great at it at first, and we lost as far as grains go. And
Weevils, and around here it's humid.
we only had
so
one bad incidence with weevils, and I think it happened to be that particular brand of grain that I got. I think must have been full of weevils when I got it, but thankfully they didn't spread to our other buckets of food. But now I have better methods with Gamma Seal lids, so and the
Mylar.
and Mylar
Seal
and
Mylar bags.
oxygen absorbers. Use those a little bit. I don't depend on those myself. I'm not super crazy about them for several reasons, but I find that, like for my grains, what I really like to do is for the stuff that I'm not using right away, I put it in a good, like a 5-gallon Mylar bag, and then I use my old straightening iron. I don't use it for my hair, so I use that to seal. It's a real easy. I get as much of the air out as I can. I will still, for the things I know I want stored for a long period of time and I don't want to have to open it, I will still throw an oxygen absorber or 2 in there to really make sure it gets a good seal. But things like popcorn is an excellent thing to stock up on because popcorn is always non-GMO, and it's got multi-purpose because not only can you use it as popcorn as a great comfort food to have on hand, you can also grind it up into a meal or a flour. And if you have your country living grain mill, especially with the corn and bean auger, you could do that. Now, I personally haven't tried it yet, but I do have the corn and bean auger, and so I know that I have that option, which is just really great. And popcorn, the other thing is why I recommend stocking up on that, is it is one of those foods that even if you didn't preserve it really well, it will last for a very long time. It is said that they have found popcorn that was 8,000 years old and it still popped, and it wasn't even preserved in anything fancy. Obviously 1,000 years ago they didn't have Mylar bags and vacuum sealers and oxygen absorbers, but I'm sure they had some pretty advanced ways of doing things that we probably have lost touch with in our more modern society that maybe we should consider getting back to because it's probably more natural.
Food stores, there's a lot of responsibilities that go along with that, keeping it preserved and rotating. You want to rotate your
Very important.
rotate your food and know how long it keeps. the best way of preserving. Freeze drying is probably one of the better ways of preserving the nutrients in your food.
The nutrients and the flavor and the color. I do find that when it comes to dried foods, some things I prefer freeze-dried and some things I prefer dehydrated. It just depends on what it is or how I plan on using it. Before I continue on, I wanted to hit on a couple more simple points as to why it's a good idea to have food storage and the reasons I really enjoy having it. It's just been a lifesaver to us in a lot of ways, and some of those are you always have what you need on hand. So if you've got, let's say you run out of fresh milk, well, if you have several boxes of boxed milk, like I have a lot of the Gosner milk, I'll stock up on that. Now, it's not going to be the most nutritious milk. However, it's a ready-to-use milk, and I personally like the taste of it just fine. And I can grab a box of that, and it's happened a few times where we ran out of fresh milk, and I just grabbed that. And obviously, there's also your powdered milk, and there are a couple of brands out there of the powdered milk that I'd highly recommend. Especially if you can get whole powdered milk that is also organic and making sure it's not full of all that nasty stuff. That is the best to go with, not the non-fat milk. Or let's say you're making dinner for just you and your spouse, and all of a sudden you have some guests show up, and you're like, hey, why don't you have dinner with us? Well, you have plenty of food stored that all you got to do is add to what you have. You don't have to run back to the store to get more. And I just really enjoy the convenience of when I'm doing my meal planning that I can just walk into my pantry and go, this is what I'm going to make for dinner. Here's all my ingredients. Bam, 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 bam. I don't have to run to the store to get it if I just have a spur of the moment idea, or I change my mind of what I want to make. It's like, I decided I don't feel like making turkey gravy and rice tonight. I'm going to do this instead. And again, I don't have to run to the store because I had a change of mind. I can do what I want based on that.
If you store up a little bit more food, what you can do is you can look for sales or buy in bulk.
Right.
And, and break it down and put it in Mylar bags or can it or dry it or whatever have you. Then you can look for things that are on sale and buy at a more reasonable price than just going down there daily. Go to the store daily.
Right.
You're saving fuel. If you only go once a week or once a month, you can save fuel and time by stocking up on several items and buying it in bulk, waiting for the sales to come, and then buy up some.
Only buying it on sale. You never have to pay full price for it. And then there's the old saying of you're buying tomorrow's food at today's prices, because the cost of food is only going to continue to go up. So another good reason to have the food storage.
And if you're buying it today on sale, you're buying it at yesterday's prices. Kind of.
Oh yeah. So. Well, and then again, going back to the whole financial crisis, if you're having a financial crisis and you can't afford to run to the store, who knows, whatever that crisis may be, somebody gets ill and ends up in the hospital or whatever it is, you don't have to worry about going to the store for maybe several weeks or even several months, because you've got some food storages to depend on while you're getting yourself back ahead and catching up on whatever that issue is. An automobile that needs to be repaired or anything.
Any costs that come up, if your roof blows off or something like that, and your insurance decides to rip you off, and you have to put that on yourself. You can cut back in different areas. Take a few vehicles off of the insurance, and cut back on the grocery bill. Just leave off of what you have on hand. All those things, if you take a little bit from here and take a little bit there, shave off the different costs, well then that big cost doesn't affect you or hurt you as much as it would if you were just living from day to day.
Right. And that's something else. And even though this is about food, I'm going to go ahead and add this in here about because he touched on something about the automobile insurance. That's something that should have went into our ways to save money on the homestead video. But a lot of people don't know this. But if you have several vehicles and you have them insured, but let's say you're only really needing one, you can put the other two vehicles into suspension on your insurance and save yourself hundreds of dollars. This is what we do. And we just rotate them around. If he's got the Toyota and he's gone and I need the GMC and I need to go somewhere right now, I just email my insurance agent and say, hey, I need the truck today. And when I'm done, I let them know. And, you know, it might only cost $1 or $2 to insure it for a day. And then I put it back in suspension and I'm saving that much. I mean, it will save you tons. So look into that with your insurance company. So side note, I know, but I think it's important fact that I'm finding out how many people do not know they can do that. And I'll probably mention it in another money saving video because I want to make sure everybody has that little tip. So anyway, back to the food, which is what we're supposed to be about.
We digress.
It's just, yeah, sometimes things are just really important that need to be said. So, and then the other thing I wanted to say about that I didn't think to put in my notes, but I'm reminded of, that one really great thing that food storage will do for you is it will force you to be a better organizer and planner, because you have to be organized when you're getting into food storage, because as Mr. Rain said earlier, you need to know how to rotate your foods. And to be able to rotate your foods, you need to have things organized and labeled properly. When I first started in this whole food storage thing, I didn't know where to put everything, and they just kind of all got shoved in a shelf out in the shop, and boy, what a mess it was. And
that caused a lot of foods to go bad.
Yeah.
Improperly stored foods. Temperature variations.
Right.
You can't put your canned goods. You can't put your canned goods that you pressure can and water bath out in the shop that's not heated, because in the wintertime those things will freeze and they'll bust. Well, we figured that out. We were paying a lot of money to get ahead, but we were wasting a lot of food too. We had to throw a lot of food out because of the rotation and because of the storage.
But it was self-education too.
Oh, absolutely.
But with that in mind, that's another reason why we want to pass these tips on to you. So if you're getting started into it, know these things ahead of time so you don't end up with the same kind of waste that we did. You want to have good storage. You want to have, make sure you're storing your home canned goods in places that do not have. It wasn't just about the freezing, it was about the temperature variations. We didn't have any jars actually break. It was that we were starting to lose seals because freezing and then warming up and then freezing and then warming up. And so the seals were getting lost as a result. And so these are some really important tips to know and to consider.
Grow and buy what you eat, and eat what you grow and buy. Don't say, oh wow, cans of corn are on sale.
And you hate corn.
And we if you buy 10 cases of corn and you don't like corn, what's the point? You're probably not going to eat it unless you're starving to death. And so some people don't like canned corn. Just one example, asparagus. That might be another thing. You don't like asparagus, don't eat it, don't dehydrate it, don't freeze it. Just don't buy it. Buy the things that you like to eat and figure out how to preserve those things and go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Rain, because I meant to say that and I forgot, and that's an extremely important point. And that brings me to the next point, and that is making sure that you're stocking up on comfort foods. It's going to be really important during hard times that you're not just having to survive off of beans and rice, because you're going to get serious food fatigue. And if it's a specifically hard time, you're financially pressed and things are stressful and difficult or whatever it may be, you're going to need those comfort foods that help bring a little bit more joy through the hard times. For us, it's stocking up on things like the cacao butter and the cacao powder so I can make chocolates, and I'll use my freeze-dried foods to add to those, to add more flavor, and even the powdered milk comes into play, and the honey and the homemade powdered sugar from the sugar that I have in storage. I can make these wonderful, tasty, yet still healthy comfort foods that help bring that just little bit of pleasantness to some rough times.
Well, added to that would be spices.
Right.
We're, you know, pepper, salt, of course, all those things that help bring out the flavor in food. And did I say pepper?
Yeah,
More
he
pepper.
loves black pepper.
So pepper and garlic, all those different things that dried onions and whatnot. A lot of these things you can buy in bulk. If you don't already grow them and dry them yourself, consider buying some of this stuff. And then while you're, you know, stocking up on some of these different spices and foods and different things, start practicing how to grow those
Right.
things. So you have some in stock, it's already professionally sealed up, then you start learning how to dehydrate, learning how to grow. So yeah, spices and
And I
herbs.
highly recommend when you get started in growing your own herbs, go with those perennials that have lots of flavor, like sage. I mean, not only is it incredibly good for you, I love to use sage in so much of my cooking. It just adds that savory, warm flavor to the foods. You know, again, it's more comfort food and it's healthy for you, and it is so easy to grow. A lot of your perennial herbs are just super easy to grow. Thyme and rosemary are a little more difficult for us in our area, but for people that live in drier climates, you'll find it pretty easy to grow those, especially if you live in the south. I know that rosemary grows more like a weed. And oregano is another good one to grow that's super easy. And now I never have to buy sage and oregano again because they grow like crazy. Then now I wanted to move on to the last thing, and that is the freeze-dried foods, which was the last thing that we really started getting into when it came to food storage. And then practicing with those, cooking with those and making treats with those. And I didn't think at first I would enjoy it very much, but I love it so much. And it really has made my life easier too, having these things on hand. So we started off with, and I think this was mentioned earlier, buying the number 10 cans of different freeze-dried and dehydrated foods from Honeyville. Now, I recommend having for long-term storage, for things to put away in long-term storage that can have up to 25 years shelf life, going with number 10 cans of something. Now, I have plenty of that. And Honeyville, to me, is a really good place to go for those kinds of things. And that is also where I get my organic hard white wheat berries. Those ones have been the best for price and just all around quality that I've come across so far as the hard white wheat goes. So I'll go ahead and give you a link to the Honeyville below, and you can check out their stuff. But my latest source that I'm really enjoying is the Mother Earth products. Now, they don't have number 10 cans, but if you're just getting started in freeze-dried foods, it is where I highly recommend you start, because you can buy small quantities directly from their store. Now, I started off getting them from Amazon, but I did a search, I found their store where I could purchase from directly and set up an affiliate account with, and I found that I can not only get the price cheaper, I can also earn points for future orders, so that will be that much taken off of a future order. And you can buy things as small as, let's say, before in the earlier video I was talking about their products, and they come in the plastic quart-sized jar. You can also get them in the Mylar bag instead and save another $1 for each thing by buying it in the Mylar. And get this, you can go smaller yet if you're wanting to just try them and see if you like them. And it's like a pint size, and I think that might also be in a Mylar. And you can also do their sampler pack. So I'll put a few links below to some of their products so you can check them out and give these things a try. I've already tried several of their products, and I'm just did another big order. I'll be trying out more, and I'll be using them in cooking and baking in future videos so you can see how I use them and what I think about them. Just like their freeze-dried mushrooms, definitely, and I've been using their dehydrated onion and garlic for quite a long time and have been very pleased with it. Oh, and one more thing about them is that you can do up to $99 worth of stuff. You get it's just a flat rate shipping of $7. However, if you go $100 and up on an order, it's free shipping. So not only would you be getting the lower price than you would from Amazon, you can also get the free shipping on top of that if you do $100 or more and earn the credit points. I just think it's an all-around great way to start. Honeyville, you can also earn credit points. So what I recommend is try the stuff out first, in the smaller packs. Now, Mother Earth Foods also has big bags. You can get on some of their products up to 40 and 50 pound bags of the dried stuff. However, you would still dehydrated or freeze dried.
That's a lot of food.
But then you have to keep in mind you would still have to vacuum seal all that stuff into some mason jars, quart jars, half-gallon jars, and pint jars, depending on what you want to do, and then put that up. And then if you decide, after trying the stuff through the Mother Earth, and you try some small quantities, and you don't want to buy the big bags through there, do some price checking to see what like a 30-pound bag would be as opposed to however many ounces, because it's going to vary on the number 10 cans depending on what's in there. And see what's going to be your better deal. You may prefer buying the bigger bags and then vacuum sealing them all into jars yourself, or go over to Honeyville and buy number 10 cans for things that you want to put away for long-term storage. So now that I have plenty of number 10 cans for long-term storage, I'm going to go to the smaller sizes as I try out these different things through the Mother Earth, and I might find I like some of their stuff better. So I'll be trying out the pineapple, the mango, and the raspberries and all kinds of different stuff, and I'm very excited. Sweet potatoes, I can get sweet potatoes dehydrated and I can get them freeze-dried, and I'm going to try them both because I have a feeling that each, freeze-dried and dehydrated, that they'll have different uses. Like I'm guessing the dehydrated would be best for throwing into soups, where the freeze-dried might be best for cooking up and then mashing and using in something like sweet potato pie or whatever. But we'll see when we get there. So
there are some people out there that have bigger areas to grow. They have longer growing season. We're a little bit limited on our growing season here.
Right.
So we have to depend a little bit more on purchasing some of this stuff until we refine or find the vegetable or fruits and vegetables that actually grow good here. We're working on
like grapes.
We got one peach this year off our Frostless peach tree that we had to replant. We split it amongst each other, but I don't think
really
peaches will last us all year on that tree right now. But we're working on the apple tree. We're working on different fruit trees around here, and trying different species of different types of potatoes and different things. Potatoes do grow real good here. Carrots, I'm gonna work on that one.
We're still working on the carrots.
But she's purchased dehydrated and freeze-dried carrots. Those are on stock. She can grab a handful of those and throw them in a soup or something like that, and works out pretty good, or a stew.
And another thing to consider, and I'm glad you brought this up because it was another point I wanted to make, is that obviously you want to stock up on the things that you can't grow, like for us, your tropical fruits like mangoes and pineapple, they're not going to grow so well here. So I like to get those freeze-dried, so I have those yummy things handy to make different flavors and stuff and pies and whatever. But even the things that do grow well, like raspberries, grow well here, and we do grow raspberries, and we get a significant amount. But I still like stocking up on those in the freeze-dried because they're really good, and freeze-dried has its place in certain dishes that the fresh ones don't. And we don't have a freeze dryer, and a freeze dryer is very expensive to purchase. And at this point, I would rather buy freeze-dried foods than get the freeze dryer myself.
Maybe down the road, we might consider that.
Down the road, maybe.
They are expensive.
And the other reason why, if it's something that grows prolifically here and we do good on it, I may still want to have some put away in storage in case of crop failure, because anybody that's been gardening for any amount of time is going to know this will still happen from time to time, whether it be a weather change, like we had some weird weather patterns this last spring, I didn't yield as much squash as I normally would because everything was very behind. And so having foods put away, whether it be freeze dried, dehydrated, frozen, whatever, like I'm thankful that I grew a lot of pumpkin in 2015 because last year I didn't grow any pumpkin. This year I tried to grow pumpkin and only got 2 this size, which was normal size for a pie pumpkin, and then 2 this size, and that's all I got. So, but it's okay because I'm way ahead on my pumpkin from 2 years ago. So those are the things you have to consider. You can't assume just because it's growing great for you for a few years in a row that the next year it's going to grow just as well. You need to always be ahead to be prepared for those times that it's maybe not going to grow so well.
So did you have on there food foraging and hunting and fishing?
No. I'll let you
Learn
take the reins.
how to hunt, learn how to fish, learn how to food forage. Find out the species of plants that are in your area, be able to identify them, be able to know which ones are edible. Learn how to fish and hunt. Those are great resources in continuing your food preparations and long-term food access.
Right, and we do those things too. Like we didn't end up getting out there and getting chanterelles this year, but we go out and get chanterelle mushrooms sometimes. Every year we try to get out and pick wild blackberries, and wild as in they grow wild around here.
Did you get this year 20 gallons or 15 gallons?
We got 15 gallons of blackberries this year that we went out and picked, and so that was really great. And some of it I turned into jam, and most of it I like to freeze, and I have canned them before, but again I like to freeze a lot of that stuff because I think it preserves the flavor and the nutrition a little bit better. But
Right.
But yeah, so there's and we foraged medicines like the salal, and yeah, so there's a lot of things that you can go out and forage, and Mr. Rain got a deer this year, and we also got some elk meat from a friend by helping him out, and we've also got fish from people, or
Another good way is to barter
Right.
some of your skills. If you don't have the resource or the land to grow a certain crop, then maybe you can trade a skill that you might have, or trade something you have for something that they have. We have some good friends that watch our channel, and we get a gallon and a
we
half
usually get at least a
of fresh
gallon
goat
to a gallon
milk
and a half of
every
fresh.
week.
Yeah, every week.
And they're always showering us with homemade honey.
Oh, and it's so good.
And different things like that. So we don't have honeybees. We really don't have a place to keep them here, despite what some people might think. I just don't feel comfortable about having honeybees here. But anyway,
I get it.
but yeah, I mean, what a great resource of that they're so grateful,
Yeah.
for our channel, I guess, and that's their way of saying thank you to us. And I know that you guys are listening, and you remain to want to be unseen, but we really do appreciate what you do for us. So thank you very much.
We also had some other friends that were borrowing Patrick's planer that blessed us with a whole bunch of fresh local caught salmon, and that really filled our freezer up. That was great. So now we
Friend
have
that had the fish. I had the planer. He had the fish. He left happy. I left happy. A little more in our freezer.
yeah.
And
Like I said, along with the deer meat, the elk meat, the grass-fed beef, and the organic chickens we have in there.
Right.
So we have a good supply of meat of all different varieties, and yeah, so there's so many different ways you can prepare. And don't forget, again, any of that meat you can can. Fish is the only meat that I have yet tried canning, which I plan to do eventually. I just haven't needed to at this point, but yeah, so you can can any of that
Can or
stuff.
smoke.
Canning meat
you can
is
smoke or make pemmican or jerky or something
yeah,
like
I
that.
like to
So
make jerky
drying
quite a
is
bit.
different ways of preparing on that
Yeah.
too. So
And by the way, making jerky, and I do have a video on that, but I do plan on doing an update to it. It's an easy process, and you can preserve it in jars, vacuum sealed, and it will last for years. I have not had one single jar of my homemade jerky go bad ever. So
Good stuff,
and it's really great stuff, and it's easy to do.
And we just
So-
do that on a wood stove.
Yeah,
I
just
don't
on wood
actually
stove.
have a smoker. One of these days I plan on building one. It's on the to-do list, but
We have more to come on this series, and I think our next installment is going to be about water. So be watching for that in the future. And we really appreciate you coming along and joining us for this. And I hope that we were able to give you some good pointers, maybe a few things you might not have thought of yet or didn't know. And yeah,
everything's a work in progress, guys.
right.
You can learn lots from other YouTubers, and we appreciate you guys being a part of our lives and sharing with us. Put comments below. Share your thoughts.
Right.
Give us ideas.
Please.
We're learning all the time,
Yep.
and we appreciate the channels that we follow. We don't always comment on other people's channels just because
Time.
it's pretty busy.
Time.
And so, but we know who you are. We know the people that follow us, and we really appreciate it. So
Yes, thank you. All right. Thanks for watching,
take care.
and God bless.